Hi, this is Trusted Neal with the Call to Learn Conference, and I have my son Izaak here with us today. And I'm so excited to introduce you to him. So I've been interviewing a lot of youth lately, and I thought, why not interview my own son? So he's down here from Idaho today, and I thought I would just talk to him. So I want to do it a little bit different because he is my son, and I know a lot about him. Well, at least I think I do. And so we're going to do it with just like a conversation. His side of the story versus my side of the story. That kind of thing, like, mother-son thing. All right, so Izaak, we're going to start out with your childhood. Tell me, what was your homeschooling experience when you were a child?
The one thing that I immediately thought of when you said childhood was when we remember getting out those balls for space, and we to study the solar system, and we got those foam balls, and like they do that in public school too. I'm assuming a lot of people do that typically, but it was just so fun because we went into this basement deal, and we shut off all the lights. You had to it could be completely dark so that you understood how the sun worked around the Earth. It was really cool, and each one of the siblings had a planet. And at that time, we would study a certain planet that we wanted to study. I honestly wanted to study Pluto for some reason because I just loved it. I was really fascinated with it. It's the farthest planet. It's the coldest planet. I don't know, something to that extreme. And I studied a lot about it and how it got like a negative 300 degrees over there. Crazy things like that. And I remember those types of things. Obviously, the big brain reports are a huge part of my childhood. How we would study a certain subject, kind of like Pluto, and then we would do a report on it. We'd have to create a booklet, and then we could open it up, and then we'd show everybody. We also had to have a presentation. So I was doing demonstrations.
Did you do the castle?
Yes, I did the castle. I actually did that with my brother Tennyson along with him. And then we all added our whatever we studied to that. So like he was studying the knights, and so he had little figurines, and I built the castle, and then he put the knights in it, and then Mateo was studying something else, and then he was
studying
gates, and then he added the gate into it, and so it was just kind of this way fun project. And those are the things. That's how I really learned to learn science and history. Was those things. I think the very first one was me studying dogs. That was the first one.
And how old were you at that time? You were really
I was very young, like probably 4.
Younger than 5.
It was first when we moved to Utah Garden Park. Yeah. That was when we first did it, and we had that, and I was just.
So I had just discovered Great Brain Projects. I'd gone to a conference or something and heard the Great Brain Projects, and this is basically just project learning where you learn about it and then you do a report and you share what you've learned. And I love that idea. But Izaak here had such a talent with speaking to people. You were a public speaker from the moment you were born. I mean, he was bearing his testimony. He was one kid didn't show up to give a talk in primary, and he was I'll give one instead. And he just went up there impromptu, gave a talk. And so I'm like, these Great Brain Projects are perfect for my son Izaak.
Well, everyone has to have those. It's very crucial that everybody, because no matter what job you're in, no matter what field you're in, eventually you're going to get to the point where you have to present something.
Yeah. Well, you also kept the reports, right?
Right, and we have all those reports as well.
And we have all the videotaping of you guys presenting.
Yeah. And it was crucial for me in that early stage of childhood because I was learning to discover, and that was very helpful in my early stages of curiosity. Just I was blooming. We'd go to the library every freaking week. It was like every Friday was library day, and we would get I feel like hundreds of books sometimes, and just of this specific subject, and we'd just grab it all, and then we would take it. Yeah. And we all had library cards at like 5. And we would learn that, and we would learn all year long. It wasn't just the summer. I mean, we took some vacations, obviously, but it was all year round because it was fun. It didn't need to be. I think those early stages of child development is curiosity, discovering what things are, discovering who you are, discovering who God is, and, experimenting with things and deciding, no, that was not a good thing. Maybe, fighting with your mom wasn't a good idea. Maybe something else is going to be a good idea this time. What's more productive. They're going to discover those things. And if you just kind of shut them in the corner, tell them to read and write, and they won't like it. Yeah. You'll have the kid that who likes reading, and they end up being smart. But the kid that, because they can read, and they wanted to read really early, and they had that desire. I had no desire to read. I didn't want to read. I didn't think it was important, so I shut it off from my brain, and I had a very hard time learning it.
When did you feel like you really learned to read?
Really learned to read?
Yeah.
That was like 18.
18.
I'm not going to lie. Like when I finally got the concept of reading words was probably 12, but understanding what I was reading, 18.
Yeah.
It took a long time because I didn't have a desire to read. I didn't feel like it was necessary.
So let me tell you my side of that story. My side of that story was I had learned when I first started out in the 90s, I started out and I had learned that if your children watch you read, then they'll learn how to read. And I'm like, okay. So I read all the time. I read to them. I read with them. I read for them. I had them read with me. They watched me read all the time. And it didn't work. And by the time he was 12 and he was starting to get it finally, I was like, well, good grief, how long does it take you for them to want to learn to read?
Right.
And I was feeling like maybe that was a lie. Maybe what I had been taught was a lie. And I didn't know how to fix it. And by the time he was 12 years old, he had no desire to learn how to read. And I just went to my room and prayed. I prayed a lot, saying, okay, I don't know how to help him learn how to read, but I know it's important. Help him to learn to read. And actually, reality, I held Teo back from reading so that he wouldn't be better than you. And I think that was a mistake.
That was silly.
It was.
That's what it was.
Anyway, so you didn't learn how to read until you were 18. So what happened at the age of 16?
So,
actually, it was before that, right?
Well, I guess backgrounds. We kind of jumped from.
Yeah, you had a great childhood. Homeschooling was amazing. Still didn't learn how to read. We just did projects at the time.
That was really the only problem, was reading and spelling. I actually really liked and enjoyed writing. Just at that time, I loved to write, but I always had to have you right there with me because I didn't have to know how to read. I mean, for some reason, or a spell, or read, or anything, and if you don't know those two things, you don't know how to write. Yeah. And I loved writing, and I still do. And I still have a hard time just picking up a book and reading the content and then writing about it or writing something that pertains to it. I have a hard time doing that because I just like to write. Yeah. And for most people, it's not necessary, especially nowadays. People just use a typewriter. But, I mean, handwriting, I was getting really good at. And I was great at my handwriting.
The most gorgeous handwriting. Seriously, you have beautiful handwriting.
And I loved it. And I took pride in that, but I just still didn't know how to read or spell, so it didn't help. So going to age 12 now, I remember me wanting to ski really, really, really bad. I wanted to go out and ski. I know that sounds funny, but that's the reason why I joined public school, is because remember you said,
I don't remember
you
this
don't
at all.
remember this at all? Oh my gosh.
What?
This is the whole reason why I went to junior high.
Holy cow.
We were sitting in the van one day. We were sitting in Old Blue, and we were talking, and then he said, hey, do you remember how you always wanted to ski? And I was like, yes, I've always wanted to ski. You know how we haven't had the money to be able to go skiing? I'm like, yeah. Well, the school puts on this program. They go to the Hollow, I think it's what it's called. And seventh graders do that, and at the end of the year. And if you join public school, then you can do that. And I was very unsure. And she's like, all you have to do is just kind of take a few classes, things that I can't teach you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So
that's when you got into band and.
This is where I discovered that I actually had a decent voice. Those things that I had a voice. I went into choir, and I was a completely different kid. Right, I came from homeschooling, And I thought that teacher demanded respect. I thought that, all these things that my former classmates did not believe in. They didn't believe in rebel against the teacher, do all this stuff. And I was very different, and everyone knew it, and so therefore I got bullied a lot. And I was caught but I wanted to go skiing, so at the end of the year it was nice, and my best friends were the teachers. My best friends were the teachers, and the teachers loved me because I would stand up for them. I'd be like, these are your teachers. You're supposed to respect them. You're supposed to, they're trying to teach us something. But we did do reading 180 as well. Remember that class?
Oh, that was to teach you how to read.
That was to teach me how to read. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this class, and I failed it. Yeah. I completely failed a 7th grade reading class. Pretty embarrassing.
I think you test scored it at a 2nd grade level.
3rd or 2nd, yeah.
2nd or 3rd grade level, and you did not pass that class at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were surprised. Like, how can you let your child not be?
Right. And then they got on you, and the counselor was mad at you, and like, why didn't you teach them how to read? This is obviously why you shouldn't do homeschool. Yeah, it's just like all your nightmares that you had thought that you'd already been thinking, they're now just throwing at you again. All the things that you constantly think about, now they're saying throwing all that negative back, and I can't imagine how that would feel. That would suck.
Yeah.
Just thinking, oh man, I didn't teach my learning. I'm a failure as a mother. I'm a failure as a parent. I didn't teach
as a homeschooler.
Homeschool.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine.
All my other friends in homeschooling had, these great, brilliant students and great readers and great beings, and I was like, but my child is amazing. Mm-hmm. I knew my son was amazing, and how did I couldn't prove that with his reading scores.
Right.
And that's what everybody tested you for. If you knew how to read, including my parents, were saying he doesn't know how to read, therefore you're not.
And nothing else matters.
And nothing else matters.
Nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
And the thing is that that's when I discovered that I felt like I was stupid.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to learn to read. I didn't know how to spell. I didn't know how to do these basic things. Everything else I excelled at.
Yeah.
Music, I just took off.
Yeah. He won all first place in every singing contest.
Yeah. I was like in music. I was in 8th grade. I auditioned for a specific part. It just says you were better than the most of the 9th graders. And then I started picking up the viola. I did brilliant at that. The only thing I couldn't read notes very well, but at least I could hear the song several times and then finally play it. I mean, there was things that I knew that I was smart at, but I didn't feel like any of it mattered.
Unless you knew how
and
to
everyone
read.
told me that, that at that time I wanted to be a musician. And I just wanted to be a musician. And my grandpa kept saying, well, there's no money in musician. I'm like, at 12 years old, I mean, come on. No, you can't just crush a boy's dream at 12 years old. That's just not okay with me. You can't just be like, well, you can't make any money as a musician. Are you kidding me? People make millions of dollars being a musician nowadays, using the computer, using this, and because people were so narrow-minded that the conveyor belt system of their day, that this, you have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to do this, and eventually you're going to come out as a product. And that product is either going to go become a doctor, or a lawyer, a mechanic, and you had to fit into those categories. Well, I didn't fit into any of them. I didn't fit into any of them. I wanted to. I was more of an entrepreneurial capitalist thinking of that you can make money doing anything you wanted to do. I didn't have to stick to something.
And that's
bugs me the most.
Yeah, he got all of these ideas, obviously, from his parents or from his father, mostly.
Yeah.
So at this time, I have my 7th child, and he was born without a bile duct. I ended up going into the hospital and living with him in the hospital for 2 years as we waited for a liver, and kind of left Izaak on his own. Really, basically, I said, public school is supposed to take care of my children. They will take care of me. They'll take care of him. They'll teach him how to read. They'll teach him how to be smart.
And we thought, well, let's just go into a charter school because that's the best. I mean, obviously, it's not as bad as public school. Mm-hmm. Charter school has a little bit more leniency, but they still get paid for the state. which is the problem.
So I did a huge amount of research for charter schools and chose my favorite one, chose the best one. We waited on a waiting list for a while.
For 2 years, we waited on that waiting list. Well, I was at 7th grade when we finally put onto that waiting list, and it wasn't until 9th grade where we finally got into it.
So they finally get in, both of he and his brother get in, and they go and attend and go to school and just go to school, come home, unbeknownst to what I was doing. I was in the hospital just hoping and praying that everything was good at home.
Right.
So what happened at that charter school?
Well, there's nothing else that you can do as a parent. You either did what you did with Tennyson and you have to leave him at home, or you just have to hope that the state will take care of him. Yeah. That's not a good idea. It doesn't work out like that. I'm not saying that parents who don't do that are people who do that are terrible or they're bad parents. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you can't just allow the public school system to babysit your child. And people realize
vice versa.
that.
You can't, and I had hoped this. I didn't like to see the public school system as babysitting,
right?
But I wanted to see them as helping me. I had to be gone, so I wanted the public school system to help you to learn how to overcome your weaknesses,
right?
And so I entrusted the public school system to do that for you.
Public charter school system, whatever whatever we went into. I just want to make that distinction because at that time, Common Core hadn't come in yet.
That's true.
So there was a little bit more leniency on what a charter school could do at that time. But the problem is that the school that we went to I was grateful for it and I needed it to happen, but it really brought me to the lowest point in my life. The lowest point in my life because I felt like I was worthless. I felt... Even though, and again, the same thing happened. My best friends were the teachers. And my only friend was Mateo. Mm-hmm. And maybe Levi. My brother Mateo. That was the only person who I could rely on, and we relied on each other a lot at that time. I'm so grateful to have him there because I don't know what I would have done without him. Mm-hmm. I was bullied. I was mistreated. And I would, even though the teachers were my best friends, they were good and I loved the teachers, I would argue with them on a constantly basis. And the problem with that school, it wasn't necessarily the teachers because I liked learning a different point of view. They just taught everything as facts rather than giving you both sides of the story. That was the biggest problem. And they would teach evolution. I'm fine with learning evolution. I'm okay with it. But because they chose not to do because they chose to not do a section in biology, the dissecting and they didn't want to spend the money on doing that. We studied the whole semester in just evolution. So that's what was required by the state. So we studied evolution and it was taught as facts. There was no alternative to anything.
And you couldn't question it.
I couldn't question it,
no.
But I did.
I know you did, but then you failed the test, and so you had to know what they were.
Yeah, I passed with a D in that class, and the only reason why I passed was because I used my passion, which was film. They had this culture thing, and part of what you learn in biology is culture. You learn, different cultures around the world, and so I created a mini documentary of the first one I ever did. Of culture diversity, and I still have that video.
Awesome.
And it was just kind of me interviewing my mom, showing clips of Obama in there, and blew the teacher away. It was amazing, and Mateo and I just did it together, and we worked on it, and we had music behind it. It was really, really cool, and we got an A in that assignment, and he even gave me a little bit extra credit because I was the best. It was the best project there, and it was out of that. That was the only project that that allowed me to get that D. Yeah. And so it was really hard in that school because I was treated as if I was a punching bag for anybody because I thought different than everybody else. Everyone thought that they celebrated Earth Day. They were these people would walk around in barefoot. It was really weird. Like, I'm okay with the barefoot thing. Like, I walked around in barefoot all the time, but it was weird. Like, it was a hippie school is the best way to explain it. And we had broken promises. We was told we could get the money for India. We could fly to India and then learn stuff in there. And I was like, that was the best thing of the school. We were so excited for that portion. But the problem is they never helped us learn. They broke their promise in saying that they were going to help us get the money to do it. And it was cheap considering it was.
Well, they were going to help you do entrepreneur school, and that was going to be part of the class. And that entrepreneur class was going to teach you how to make the money so that you could go. Yeah. And then that class was never offered.
No. Yeah. It was never offered. Nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. And the person that ran it was real flake. Real flake. And the teachers are still great. The administration was okay. But it was the students who ostracized me because I didn't believe in what they believed in. Yeah. I was willing to hear their case. I was willing to be okay with it, and I just got to this point where I thought I was stupid. I was bullied all the time because I was different and because I was this homeschooler or whatever, and I didn't learn certain things. I was decent at math, but nothing. It was just all came apart there. And I came to the place where I had the lowest self-esteem in my whole life there. And I just thought this, and then we finally got out of it after we had...
Well, when I came home, I remember one time coming home from the hospital and we were able to stay home for about 2 months at that time. Mm. And that's when I started quizzing my son. I said, both sons. I'm like, okay, what did you learn here? What did you learn there? And I was shocked. Do you remember telling me, Mom, I don't want to live in America anymore. I want to move to Mexico?
Yep. I do remember that.
That's when I said, you are not returning to that school ever.
What sucked is that because I loved America when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I realized what was being taught at these schools, which were false. Yeah. False claims of we're the evil country, we're the country that punishes everyone, we're the capitalism is evil, that all these things that I believed in inside, but I felt was wrong, but I didn't have the education to defend it.
Right.
And so I felt alone, and so I just went off the cliff with everybody else. Mm-hmm. Instead of questioning everything, instead of learning how to study, because I didn't know how to read that well, instead of just studying it and then trying to debunk their case, it was all facts. They were older than me. You don't question.
Yeah, and they didn't.
You don't question an adult. You, yeah. And that's what's the crappy part about school is that there should be both sides of the argument. You should teach both sides, and if somebody disagrees with you, so what?
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, exactly.
If I was a teacher, I would encourage them to come up to me and say, I don't believe that's true. And I say, well, why don't you study it? Yeah. Give me your case. That's the whole point of being in a teenage, those crucial years of between 14 or 16, depending on your maturity level, to 18, or, you don't have a full-time job. You don't have any responsibilities other than maybe taking care of the dog and doing a few chores. You don't have any of these things you don't have any debt. You're still a kid, but you're mature enough to discover who you are.
Yeah. And what you're good at and what you want to do for the rest of your life. Yeah.
And that's why I quit. That's why, we did another year so that I could do swim and so I could do some sports in 11th grade. But in the middle... It was like 10th grade, wasn't it? No, it was 11th. Yeah. Like, I finished the 10 year at Walden. Oh. And then I dropped out, and then I went to... Well, I dropped out of Walden, and then I went to...
I cut him off of the school. And then you wanted to go do a couple more classes, like you did choir and swim.
Yeah, so...
wasn't there one more, like band or something? Orchestra?
No, there wasn't orchestra, okay. I don't think. It was just choir and mechanics, those kinds of things. Because the summer that a year... one of the best things that I ever learned was actually going to my grandparents that year. Remember, I was in such a low place after Walden that I just needed to leave.
So my side of the story is that I called up my father and I said, I need help. I think I'm losing my son. And so I called him up and I said, will you please take him for the summer? And I made him make it your idea.
It was my idea.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, it wasn't.
Well, sort of. I mean, I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. And so he said, yeah, sure, he could come work with me. My dad owned a mechanic shop. And so he took him for the summer, and what happened?
Well, I was just kind of a recuperating from school, just recuperating from all the negativity that happened in my life, and finally just being able to work on a machine and work hard. And I've discovered, like, I don't want to go back to school. There's no point. I'm not learning anything. All I do is get bullied. And at that time, I remember, why don't I just become a mechanic? Why can't I just learn this skill and not have to go to college? I don't have to go to college to make a living. That's where I really discovered that what I love to do. And I went to this mechanic shop and I learned a crap ton. I learned small engine repair. In fact, I used what I learned there just a few days ago to repair a scooter. I mean, these are just learning those basics of learning how to create a small engine. I mean, to be able to clean a small engine, repair a small engine was amazing for me. And I still use those skills today. And I'll never forget the words because he always kept drilling in it. I learned more there at that time during that summer than I had ever learned in school. It may have been just a specific trade, but that's where I really learned I don't need to go to college to be a good person. I can't obviously read, so why can't I just become a mechanic and I know how to do this? So I don't need to be smart. I just need to be smart in this one field. And then I went back to school because I still love doing the things that I love doing. And that's when I really hit rock bottom. I was able to heal from Walden, but then I just went back to it. Went back to the same thing. I kept switching from school to school to school thinking that, it's just a school. And it's not just a school. It was me. It was me and my self-esteem and what...
Well, your self-esteem dropped, but because you didn't fit into their mold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't fit anywhere.
Yeah.
I was different. And I didn't believe that I was smart because of it.
Yeah.
Because a smart person, academic, I didn't think of what other things that make a kid smart. I only thought about the academic portion of what makes a kid smart. And that's learning how to read, learning how to do these things.
And complying to
whatever they do. And I didn't want to do it. Like, I would do these papers and they would just take it. And I'm like, why do you take it? Like, I don't have to do this. And I would rebel. And I rebelled all throughout that school. Throughout my school, my public school experiences. Like, why can't I learn what I want to learn? Like, I know, like, when I took a geography class one time in junior high, and it was my freshman year technically. And I was like, I cheated in a test. And because I had written it on the desk with a pencil and I cheated in the test. And she's like, why did you cheat? I caught you. I said, I cheated because I don't want to do this anymore. I don't care about this. This is not geography what I learned. The geography that usually we would get out a map and then we would draw it out but she made us memorize every single thing. I'm like, I know all the countries of Europe. You don't have to memorize them. I remember them from when I was a kid and I could point them out on a map. But then she was having us memorize dates. It's like, that's not history. Where's the stories? How did Hungary become about? How did Italy become about? Like, I told her, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And somehow she liked that and respected it. I don't know. I was different and everyone knew it. But they didn't know how to handle me. No one could handle me. And they liked me. The teachers liked me, but they didn't know how to handle me.
So what made you decide to quit public school altogether?
Because I was losing myself.
Yeah.
I was losing my
so
identity.
The story that the pinnacle that I remember at is that you were applying for a solo.
That's right.
Or something, and I was home from the hospital, and we decided to take you, and I decided I want to go with you to this audition.
Yeah,
because you were so beautiful. You had such a beautiful voice.
Right.
And so we walked up together. Everything was fine. We were just talking mother-son. We walked up to the doors of the school. And as soon as we opened up the door, you turned around. And you, like, oh my gosh, there's students in here. And I can't. So his body language was like, I'm walking in and oh my goodness, there's students here. I've got to hide. And I was like, what was that all about? Why did you do that?
I'll never forget that.
And I thought, what has happened to my son? Here is the most confident child. You were the most confident child I'd ever experienced before and since. And now you were hiding from people that were 100 feet away. And I was shocked. And then you went into that audition and failed.
I blew it.
Miserably.
So bad. Like I had practiced this song forever. Over and 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 over again.
In fact, you had sung it as a solo many times.
I missed everything.
Yeah.
I missed the words.
The teacher says, do it again.
It's okay.
And like you did it again and you still messed up. And
I was to the point of tears at that point.
I was shocked. I was like, what is going on with my son?
It was Danny boy is what it was.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
What is going on? And I questioned you all the way home. Do you remember?
Yeah.
All the way home, like, okay, I've never seen you like this. I don't know who you are anymore. What?
I think that's when I finally admitted that I had thoughts of suicide at that point.
Yeah.
There's no point in living if I can't do what I love.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in living if I can't do what I want to do.
Yeah.
There's no point in living because, and at that time, I had turned to my addiction too so much because it was the only thing that was keeping me alive.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that I could
put
away.
Yeah.
Like I could be put away for a while,
mm-hmm.
you know, and my addiction to pornography allowed me to get away from from even just for a moment. That's why people drink.
Yeah.
That's why people drink is because they get away from all of this. Yeah. This world, and because they feel like they can't handle it anymore. They're not doing what they love. They're not, and this happens to men a lot, especially, is that they become, because they feel that they're useless. Is because as a society we have pushed down men so much and said that you're this, you're nothing, you're worthless. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling that pressure big time. Yeah. If I wasn't a woman, if I didn't know how to read, and I was just a complete failure. There was no hope. There was no escape. And I thought, you know, I was becoming clinically depressed. I wasn't at that point. At that point I wasn't, but I was becoming down the path where I have thought, at that point, I was, I mean, this may sound gross, but I had planned it out, written it in my mind of exactly what I would do. And that scared the living crap out of me. I said, how did I get to this point? Where was I from? I had done some things that were, you know, I'd already been to a couple of seminars that changed my life, but at this point, it was just, I felt like there was no escape to any of it. And there was no other option. And we finally decided, let's just get you out of school and just recuperate.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do.
And I didn't. He didn't. Like, I still was teaching the little kids, but Izaak got to do and study whatever he wanted.
You just let it go.
I dropped it. I treated you like you had dropped out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped out of public school, dropped out of life, dropped out of everything. And I allowed you to have the freedom that obviously you needed.
Yeah, big time.
No, as a mother, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
Like, I had no clue how how to help someone like you.
I think what parents do, and the biggest mistake that they do, is they just hold on to their kid. You have to do this, you have to do this, because they know that they're losing, so they'll just grab on tighter, but somehow you had the faith to let go.
Yeah, that's all I could do.
That was
all I
really
knew I
hard.
I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
I went to the temple a lot.
Put my name in the temple every single time. I'll always remember that. Like every single time you went to the temple, you wrote my name on that. Yeah. Every single time. Yeah, I did. For the prayer roll, every time. Yeah. And I never understood why. Like, why am I your troubled kid or something? Like, and I realized that I was going down a path that I wouldn't return, and that there's got to be a way out.
And it got worse. Right.
For a while, yeah.
It got worse. He got really angry. He even got to the point where he hit me and turned over the furniture. And I had to get to the point where I had to kick him out and tell him, you can't live in my house anymore.
Were you talking about like skipping to 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I had started learning certain things. I started going to seminars, but I kicked over. She couldn't handle me anymore. I don't blame you. I was in trouble, and I learned. Then I went to New Mexico to just work. That's all I did was work. I can't believe this was only just like 3 years ago. This was not that long ago. But so much had changed since then.
3 jobs or something?
Yeah, so I had 3 jobs. I had saved up a lot of money, and I had respected my grandparents more than I had respected my parents at that time. Mm-hmm. And Dad didn't know how to handle me. Mom didn't know how to handle me, and so they just gave it to me, and I just shut up and put my head down and did whatever they said. And I needed that, and it was bad. But then I was a different kind of broken when I came home from that. Yeah. It was a different kind of broken.
Well, it was more humble.
It was humbled. I had learned humility at that time.
You were very, very humble. And we sat down with him and said, if you're moving back home, then you need to sign this contract.
Right. These are the things
the rules that you have. And if you can't follow any of these rules, he had to pay rent, he had to do work, he had to do chores, he had to respect. He had to not turn over furniture, not punch holes in the wall. Right. All these kinds of things. And you did. And you came back a different person. Within a year from that moment that you moved in with us, back in with us.
Yeah.
You had become a different person.
It was, but I still wasn't me.
No.
I still didn't have that light.
Your education. Remember that year?
Yeah,
what did you study?
I studied the school system. I studied everything about the school system. I studied, why did I fail? Why did the system fail me? And why? And how is it failing others? Mm-hmm. Was there others that it was failing too? Yeah. Because it wasn't just me that the system was failing. It was failing several other people. I thought I was alone. I thought I was stupid. It was failing my brother. It was failing. It was failing Mateo. It was failing Natasha. It was failing me. It was failing not only people in my family, but the homeschool groups that I had wanted to be a part of, and that I started to become a part of. And even though I was a little bit older, and I went to YFF and went to this camp that I had always wanted to go to that changed my life. I was just learning the system. Camps. Yeah. I was learning the system and why it failed me, and I was learning leadership camps. And I was learning, I went to Timberline several times and became a staff member in that, which is leadership camp, again, because I had stopped for several years and then redid it again because I was asked to go back. And I had several spiritual experiences at that time, just discovering what I loved to do. And I discovered that I wanted to do anything that was with public speaking, what was with research. I just loved it all. And
during that time of research, that's when you learned how to read, right?
Yeah, and I had to. And I realized that my writing was terrible, too, because I would try to portray a message on Facebook. And I would say, this is what's so important. We have to understand this and this and this and this. And these people would look at it and be like, well, that's a misspelled word, and that's a misspelled word, and like, you're not getting it! This is not what's important. The spelling is not important. Stop it. No. You don't understand. The government is trying to take over the school system and trying to make it federalized, and that's why it's screwing everybody. That's why it's failing more people and more people. And Utah just went on board with it all of a sudden because they wanted the extra income, because they were going to take federal funding from it. And it was like, don't you get it? This is what the problem is. And they're like, well, and you're just a kid, and you didn't learn anything, people, and they were just bashing me on Facebook. So I stopped doing that. And then I realized, and I got really angry. I'm like, why aren't people understanding what I'm saying? They wouldn't understand my writing. That's when I learned how to read and write. It was because it said it was important for me to be understood. Very important, especially my kind of personality, red personality, leadership personality. If I was not understood, I wasn't living. I'm not living if I'm not understood or listened to.
What happened next?
So after that, I discovered how to read and write. That's when I really wanted to learn to read and write.
And people started listening to you.
Finally!
Yeah.
I was like, okay!
He created the Common Core.
The Common Core Cancer is what I wanted to call my documentary. I wanted to do a documentary. I never did it, but I don't count it as a failure, because during that time I had learned so much from just that, and people were starting to listen. I started getting followers. I learned how to communicate a message to something. I took a message and I learned how to communicate it through it was from scratch. Like, it was from pure hard work how I learned how to do that. And I realized I really need to focus on spelling. So I really just started learning on my own. Mm-hmm. Because if I can't get spelling, if I can't get grammar, then no one's going to understand me. And if nobody understands me, I go back to where I was. Yeah. I can't go back there. Because I know that's not where I need to be. So I need to be educated for me. Mm-hmm. I can't just expect people to believe everything that I say because I don't have evidence. I don't have proof. I need facts. I need resources. And I didn't have any of those. And so I realized that I need to learn certain skills to communicate that. And I'm still learning that. And that just inspired me to do more things. And then I went into the Pathway program. And, at that time, it was a little rocky. It was a couple still rocky points when I left the house again. And
well, it's during that time that you were in Pathway that I remember you coming to me and you said, Mom, I need a transcript. And I said, okay, let's print out your transcript that we already have from your homeschool.
Yeah, from everything, yeah.
The public school was in with the thing. And we remember sitting on the bed and you said, we were just finishing up your senior year. We were trying to put everything together and putting it up there. And I said, wow, look at how amazing you are. And you looked down there and you said, I've done a lot. I am smart.
Yeah.
Remember that?
We put up a list of things that I had
you
done.
had accomplished in that 4 years. And it included everything. All of his training camps that he went to, the leadership camps that you went to, the seminars that you went to. Mm-hmm. It included all of their school stuff that you did, included all of the, gosh, how much did you do with 4-H? I mean, just tons of stuff.
I discovered, doing all that and adding it all up, discovered that I only had 2 credits, 2 or 3 or 4, that would have prevented me from getting my high school diploma.
Yeah.
That's it. I had a few math and I had a few...
No, you were missing a math class.
There was a couple math classes and a history class. That's it. Yeah. That's all I was missing. In fact, I had done far more. Like, if you were just to count all the credits, I would have gotten almost 2 degrees. Mm-hmm. But because I had to have the certain requirements, I almost had my high school diploma.
But it really touched me at that time because you said, wow, this shows that I'm smart. And I said, Izaak, you are smart. And you said, no, I've never believed that, Mom. I've always known I was stupid. And how sad is that? To know that you have believed your whole life that you were stupid. And that a piece of paper had to prove to you that you were smart. So sometimes it takes that. Transcripts are important to get, really are.
And not the official transcript. No. You can make your own, Your homeschool transcript that you built. I had done 4-H. All these things that we haven't even talked about that that were throughout my whole experience of high school that I hadn't realized that should have counted towards something.
Yeah.
And they don't count certain things. So
anyway, so tell us now what you're doing now. So you finished the pathway program and you actually passed. I remember you passed. You didn't think you were going to because you thought you were stupid. But you passed, you got out, you graduated from it. And man,
I got B's and A's. B's and A's in that.
Yeah.
And it was technically a semester that was spread out towards a year because at that time I had been, 4 years without going to school. Mm-hmm. And I had, I had just done my own thing for a long time. And I did the pathway program because it had college credit. And I was like, okay, and
that gave you so much confidence.
It did.
That just boosted you up. Like, man, I can do this. Look at this. I can do math. Oh, wow. Look at that. I can do writing. My teachers love my writing.
Yeah.
You remembered loving writing again.
Oh, writing again was awesome. Again. I loved writing again and loving writing again because they kept saying every writer has an editor. And I'm like, you're right. They do. I don't have to be perfect. I just need an editor. Yeah. And so they're like, nobody's perfect at writing. I mean, you could be okay and write a couple blogs, but like, if you want to have published work, you have to have an editor. Yeah. Everybody has to have an editor. And I realized I don't have to be really, I have to be decent. I have to portray my message, right? But I don't have to be, I don't have to be perfect. And once I realized that, and that pathway program brought me back to God as well. I was required to do some religion classes for my church and for the LDS church. And so I was required to do those classes and it changed my life forever. I never knew that you could have God, even though you taught me this my whole life. You didn't know you could have God and learning and put them together. And when I discovered that, I learned things so quickly. I never had before. I learned how to write and read within 1 year. And I caught all up to that point. And I discovered why. It's because I added God into it. Yeah. He was out of the equation completely for me because God, that was the number one thing that frustrated me the most. That still makes me angry to this day. Why the school system are failing kids. You could make an argument that they have to be through the conveyor belt system. You can make an argument to prepare them for college. You can make all that argument. But it all comes down to because you decided to take the Bible decided to take those standards away from people and those basic principles. Basic principles. It doesn't even have to be elaborate as the LDS Church. It just the basic principles of God because they chose to take that out and to create something out of thin air is the main reason why this education system is failed. Yeah. What I'm doing now is I'm getting my bachelor's degree in communications.
Isn't that like ironic? I mean, as a child, he was a great communicator and just soared in communication. And then he got to the point where he couldn't talk to anybody at all. And now you're back. Now you're getting a degree in communications. It's so cool. And how are you liking it?
I'm loving it. And I mean, obviously, even at a church school, there are certain things that happen with professors they think is facts, and God wants you to question. That's important. Question everything with boldness, even the very existence of God. And that keeps running through my mind 1,000,000 times a day, because you will never find the truth if you don't question.
And who said that statement?
Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. Sure.
And you got to understand, at that time, nobody questioned God. God was the person. You can't question him. But his point was that in order to progress, in order to understand God and to believe in Him, you have to question Him. I questioned God at that time, and I continue to do so on certain topics in the church. I continue to question about coffee. I continue to question about e-cigarettes. I still continue to challenge the system, and I continue to challenge because that's the way I learn and discover the truth. You can't discover the truth unless you doubt something, unless you find, okay, let's take a step back. Okay, what are the facts here? So you're still obviously going to have those problems in school, but in my opinion, I'm going to the best college in the world, at least for me.
And what college is that?
BYU, Idaho. The reason why I chose this college is because it did bring God and learning together. It brings that every time. I think some people don't understand that it can work a certain way. I think some of the professors still separate it. They're like, okay, we'll say a prayer, but we won't do everything else. Like, come on.
But there's some.
There's some, and I'm not saying that there's not. And there's some professors that are incredible, and that take science and they say, okay, so what do you think? Or like your scientist back when it was in Rick's, I'll never forget that story where you told, where he said, okay, so this is how the human body works, but yeah, you're right. There's no such thing as God.
Yeah. And he said it at least once a day.
I love that.
Turn around and remember, there's no God. We're like, yeah, whatever. And it drilled into us that there definitely has to be a God in order for
something.
Yeah.
There's something that created that.
Yeah.
There's no way. Why are we so creative beings? Why are we creative beings? Well, because God's a creative being. Yeah. So,
so do you have any tips for anybody else who's listening to this recording?
Don't waste your time. And question everything. Question everything. Even if you're the only one that does it. Because trust me, I've been there.
Yes.
Been there many times where I've been the only one who questions the teacher. I remember in Sunday school one time, really quick story. I was in Sunday school at a time. I was with my cousin Taylor, and we were listening to this person. They're like, okay, the three gods, in the church, there's the king, there's the three worlds, terrestrial world, celestial world, and the terrestrial world, and this is how it works. And I said, and I raised my hand and kind of just like nudges me, just shut up and just listen to this. Listen to this. I raised my hand and I said, okay, honest question. Don't you think that God would make it a plan, even when we're in heaven and judgment's been made? Do you think that maybe we could go up the ranks eventually? I mean, that's a theory. And I was just like, do you have any thoughts on that? And they're like, no, you're set in your ways. You're set like this. But, well, we don't actually know, right? We don't actually know once we get into heaven whether or not the three degrees of glory, whether or not we can move up the ranks after all. People from Art of Darkness, do you think they can be forgiven? If they could be forgiven on earth, can't they be forgiven in heaven? And I would question it. He's like, why do you have to do this? And I'm like, what? It's like, why can't you just shut up and listen? And because I won't learn anything. I won't discover what I truly believe without questioning everything. So question everything and ask honest questions, not just be sarcastic about it. It's fun. It'll feel good. It'll feel good once you prove the teacher right. But if you just ask it honestly, you might get an honest answer. And you might discover, okay, so just to clarify, this is what it is. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I did want to say that to parents who think that they've failed their child, surrender. It saved me. Give up. Well, not give up. Surrender. There's a big difference. If you surrender, you're saying, I just give it to you, God. Because that's all you can do. Yeah. That's what saved me. It's because you let go. I see so many parents just grabbing on to something that's not there. Yeah. Grabbing onto nothing, and then they choke their child to death. and they say, and then they go years and years without seeing their child ever again because they choked them at the wrong point. You have to let them fall. You have to let them. That's hard.
It's way hard.
It's way hard. How hard was it when you decided just to let go? Let go of me.
Well, I have to admit failure too then, right? Mm-hmm. If I let you go, then I have to say I'm a failure.
Yep.
And I didn't want to be a failure. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be a homeschool dropout either. or a mother failure either. I didn't want to have it accept that. But I did know that God knew you better than I did. Yeah. And I did have that testimony. Still have that testimony. That He can run your life better than I could run your life. And so I allowed Him to do that.
That's the best thing that you can do. Because there is a point in every child you just have to let go of them. And prayers have been the number one. Even if I know God is there through prayer because He has answered them. Prayer has always been the main answer for me. It's always there. It's like, even when I'm in doubt, when all this thing, you could do all these fancy things that people tell you to do, these self-help books, all just comes down to prayer. Every single one of them. So, yeah, I just feel like I should say that in the name of Jesus Christ.
Well, amen.
I really do.
All right, thanks, and appreciate your time. Yeah. I know that your story is not the only story like this out there. Mm-hmm. And it's almost kind of being vulnerable.
Oh, definitely.
Sharing a story yeah. like this, and I appreciate your vulnerability.
No problem.
Love ya.
Yeah, love you too, Mom.
To be notified of our newest YouTube videos, be sure to click the subscribe button here. Head over to our new website for the latest gifts and promotions. For more videos like this one, click this playlist here.